So today is episode 7, day 6 of Lent. Apologies to my friends Belle and Corey. I was talking to them yesterday and was telling them that I was going to start a series on music that I listen to, but of course my crazy mind went in a different direction. So today my topic is my parents. And this is not going to go where you think it's going to go, but it will go where you expect it to go. So I make a joke often that I was raised by two sets of parents. The first set of parents were my mom and dad, who I love dearly from the bottom of my heart. But the other were television and motion pictures. Or you could say radio, television, and motion pictures, because I watched a lot of TV. Now, at 54, nearly 55, I can sit back now and I can reflect on my life. And one thing you should know is I don't forget a lot. I don't remember everything, but the things that were important, I remember. And lessons from television, it's a weird thing. So let me back up. So in my life, I believe that I was traumatized by how my grandmother treated me, acted toward me, all those things. When she died, I can remember being like torn in this weird direction where I felt relief that she wasn't there because she was so mean to me, but confusion about why that was, and disappointment in myself because I felt that way. And I started doing two things. I started obsessing on TV and I started eating a lot. And I remember just being comforted by food and being comforted by being alone with television or being alone at the movies. Like the darkness of the theater, there's a Playhouse Theater in Statesville. And just sitting there in this big, big room where the only light that was on you was the light from the screen. It was just, it was like sensory deprivation for me. It became this thing. So television was like this real escape from every bit of pain. I could escape into television. And then music, because I was a little gay boy, music was this weird secret language. I can remember being able to identify with the female singers singing about a relationship that I imagined would be with a man. And you could kind of bask in that feeling of, what if it were me? And so the music, like, it's a weird, Donna Summer singing Heaven Knows, anything, everything, just every note that a woman was singing, it had to be you, like just beautiful notes. But when a woman was singing, I could feel that emotion. In movies, I could laugh when I was in such great pain in my life, confusion about who I was, about how people treated me, but I could go into a movie or watch a TV show and just be able to laugh and let go and escape. And so that, if I were to tell you I have a panic room, music, television, and motion pictures, that really is my panic room. When the world gets to be too much for me, I can go watch a cartoon, I can go watch a movie. I get to kind of allow myself outside of this mental space for a little bit. Now, I'm going to talk to you about my favorite set of parents, my mom and my dad. Also both mixed race. One kind of a world person, born in New York, grew up in Montreal, part-time in New York, in Harlem, in Manhattan, just was a crooner, was a backup singer for Frankie Lyman at certain points as a teenager. And the backup group, they were called the Teenagers. So Frankie Lyman and Teenagers. My dad was one of those. Really good looking guy, about my complexion, kind of hazel green eyes, long black hair, the good hair, let's go back to that, that made him hard to pinpoint as well. Most people thought Native American, including him, and the family dynamic, because he was partially Canadian, it was hard to kind of pinpoint. And you have all these family stories. Well, we thought we were Native American. We grew up thinking we were Native American. If you go to my parents' house now, my dad's Native American art is all over the house. Turns out we're not that much Native American, but our skin tone lent to a story that said that's how we became palatable. My mom was also mixed race, but she, interestingly enough, found out in her mid-30s that she had a different father from the rest of her siblings. Although her parents were married, my grandmother had an affair. And my mom came out looking different than all of her siblings. And imagine how that plays in the 1940s and 1950s in a small town like Statesville. Well, that story, sadly, was tragic. My grandfather, who I thought was my grandfather, my middle name is Thurksell. I'm named after him. He was hit by a car and killed when my mom was 9, and my mom went to go live with an aunt and uncle in New York. Really, for the rest of her childhood, she met my dad in her late teens. They married when she was 20. But her life wasn't great. Her life was sad. But if you know my mom, you wouldn't actually know that. My dad was, before he passed away, he was a lifelong alcoholic. People knew that. If you lived in Statesville and you knew enough about Belmont, the neighborhood I grew up in, you knew. My dad was a binge drinker, and he would go to local bootleg houses, and we grew up in a time where you knew every bootleg house and you knew the people who went there. And so everybody you knew the reputation. So my dad was an alcoholic, but he's this genius person who could pick up like music and, any skill. Like I seem to have a little bit of that. Like I just pick things up really quickly, like my dad. These were two dynamic people. My mom never went to college, but she would read everything she could get her hands on. And she was like one of the most intelligent people with one of the most intense bits of common sense you could ever imagine. These were dynamic people who I got to live this amazing, complicated, at times troubled life. But boy, what a gift that was. What a gift to have a dad who spoke 2 languages, who lived all these neat experiences. My parents' first date, I take that back. My parents met at a party. And the party just happened to be in the apartment of, I can't believe I'm drawing a blank. Famous guitarist. It'll come to me. Jimi Hendrix. Yes, I'm sorry. My dad's buddy was Jimi Hendrix's manager. Jimi Hendrix was on tour. My dad had been working in some stables. I think it was in Yonkers. I know it was outside of New York, but he came to this party and he smelled like horse shit. Sorry, Mom. And my mom shows up with these friends, and they're all of her friends were beautiful. My mom is beautiful, but they walked in, and my dad's like, "Oh, this one's gorgeous," and "Oh, she's gorgeous." And then I think it was my mom's friend Deborah, who they're still best friends. Deborah walks in. He's like, "Man, I'd like to date her." And then story goes, if I'm remembering correctly, but my mom walks in, and my dad says, "But that is the woman I'm going to marry." And if I remember correctly, he walked up still smelling like horse poop, shit, whatever. And he showered, cleaned up, was impressive enough that they went on a date, and then the rest is history. They were together for 52, 53 years, married for 51. My dad passed away of liver cancer, a complication probably of the drinking. He had heart disease. You know, they both were diabetic. My dad had amputations, and, you know, but throughout all of our lives, there was love, and there was laughter, and there was humor, and there were dark moments, lots and lots and lots and lots of dark moments. But I never, ever, 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 ever lost point that my parents loved me. Even when I came out and it was difficult for them, I remember my father saying something to the effect of, I think I would have rather you told me that my son was a devil worshiper than that. But again, that was 1992. And the first time he came to this house, and the first time my husband cooked him dinner, made him a ribeye steak, sitting at the table, he looked at my mom and he looked at me and he said, Cody, I think I might love your husband more than I love you. That's love. That's what I got. That's who they were. That's my blessing. That was my gift. My parents were fantastic. My mom is still in my life and still fantastic. My father is still in my life. His spirit is with me all the time, and I love that I know that he's with me. I know that he's with me. I can feel him just like I feel that spirit of God around me at all times. I'm a blessed man that many people might think has lived a cursed life, but I don't. Think about that. Go in peace.